All right, today we're talking about the chapter, or the section rather, on equations. And the first type of equation that you learned in life was a linear equation. Linear equations are equations of the first degree, and they're real simple ones sometimes, like 2x plus 7 equals 11. And what do you think you do to equations? Do you find equations? Do you evaluate equations? Well, no. We solve equations. We look for the solutions. We look for the answers or the replacements for the variable that make the sentence true. So we solve these. Anytime I say solve, I want the solutions. And you guys know how to do this. Kind of draw a line, subtract 7 from both sides. That's the subtraction property of equality. And then divide by 2. And voila, there's my answer. It's a replacement set. It's what you can replace the thing with. Your final answer should be in set brackets, okay? It's called a solution set. Okay, well, sometimes the linear equations get a little tougher. And if you can't see my paper, be sure to just say, we can't see. That's all you have to say. What if it were something like this? Okay, well, that's a linear equation. And I would, if you're copying, I would just copy this, but not copy the work I'm going to do. Just copy this and leave some space. And then go back after I do my lesson, and you try to solve them on your own. And then you can go back to the YouTube video and see the solutions. Okay. So when I have a bunch of parentheses, the first thing I have to do is get rid of the parentheses. How do I do that? Well, I distribute. 4x plus 4. And here you have to be careful. It's a -3. When you have subtraction, you distribute the subtraction sign as well. And you need to get used to it. Subtraction and negative mean the same thing. So subtracting this is the same as -3 times each of these. -3 times here is -6x. -3 times -8 is plus 24. Now, after I distribute, I have to combine like terms on each side. So on this side, I have 4x minus 6x. I have 4 plus 24. And on that side, it's still a 4. Notice when I'm doing my work, I line up my equal signs. I want to see you line up your equal signs. Okay? Subtract the 28. -2x equals -24. Then divide by the number in front of x, or whatever's attached to x. Okay? And we're going to get 12. My solution is 12. Now, your whole life, it's been really nice that, most of your answers turn out to be whole numbers like this. That's not the case, you guys. There are so few whole numbers and integers in the world. There's many more decimals and fractions. Don't be afraid if you get one of those as your answer. Okay? Does anyone have a question up to this point? Linear equations. Give me a thumbs up if you understand so far. Okay. Now let's get into a couple of weird situations. When I get to the last step here, I've got to get the x by itself. What if your last step looked like this? What would you do to solve for x here? It's a linear equation. X only has degree 1. I got to clean this guy. This guy's got a -2, a 3, all this stuff. Here's what you do. To get rid of whatever's on top, you need to put it on the bottom. And put it on the bottom over here. Whoop, 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 whoop. Whatever's on the bottom, you have to put it on top. And put it on top over here. Whoop. Now x is by itself. We have 12 over -2, which is -6. Well, what did we really do, mathematically speaking? Let's do the whole problem again, but let's talk math while we're doing it. What I did was I multiplied both sides by the reciprocal. The reciprocal of the coefficient is -3 over 2. -3 over 2. A number that's by itself is always in the numerator. These cancel, and I can cancel the 4 and the 2, leave me with 2. 2 times -3, -6. Okay. Another item to be careful of. What if you have just a number on the bottom? I see a lot of people here, they get messed up where they try to cancel the 8 and the 4. This is just like what I did up here. If I've got an 8 on the bottom, I need to cancel it out by putting an 8 on top. There we go. X equals 32. Cool. Well, I'd like to say that that's all for linear equations, but it's not. Next up, we're going to have some equations with fractions in them across the boards. So let's check this out. How about if you have something like this? Well, that's a weird looking equation. It's got a lot of fractions in there. And what students love to say, which I don't say, students say, I hate fractions. I personally love fractions. I think fractions are great. But you know what's fun to do with fractions? Because they're so great, to eat them up, get rid of them. Here's how you get rid of all the fractions in your equations. This is called using fraction busters. A fraction buster is just the least common denominator. What is the least common denominator here out of these three terms? Go ahead, anybody. Type it in or speak it up. Least common denominator. You can type it in the chat. There we go. Thank you. 14. 3 is not the least common denominator because there's actually a 1 under there. It's an invisible 1. 14 is the number that's going to cancel out both of our denominators. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply both sides of the equation by 14. 14 is our fraction buster. And now I have to distribute it. I'm going to write it kind of like we wrote those previous fraction problems. I'm going to put a little space. And I'm going to put the 14 now next to each one because I'm distributing it. Now let's start canceling. Eat that denominator. Eat that denominator. Okay, all the denominators are gone. They're like freshly cooked scallops. Yummy. 3 times 14. What's that? 30 and 42? And oh, we got a mess here. I can multiply the 2 times the 10. That's 20. And then distribute it to each of the x and the 1. All right. Now, my next step is to make sure I've combined like terms, which I have, because when I combine like terms, I'm looking at each side of the equation. Now, when you have x's on both sides of the equation, I like to move the smaller x. 7x is the smallest. I'm going to subtract it from both sides. Gone. All my x's are over here. I'm not going to do it yet. Let's move the 20 now in the same step. Gone. Numbers are over here now. 22 equals 13x. I'm going to divide by 13. And I'm done. (22/13). What do you think? Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs sideways? Okay. I'm gonna stop the video because that's our first half of our lesson today. We'll have a second half coming up in just a little bit.